The spray can hissed in Maya's hand as she arced her arm across the brick wall, watching electric blue blend into violet, creating the illusion of wings spreading across the abandoned warehouse on 5th Street. She had been painting since dawn, and now the morning sun illuminated her work, a phoenix rising from abstract flames that seemed to dance in the light. This was her 14th mural in the city, each one unauthorized, each one a risk, and each one worth every second she spent creating it. She stepped back, paint flecking her worn jeans and the oversized flannel shirt she had tied around her waist. Her dark hair was pulled into a messy bun, and her hands were a rainbow of colors that no amount of soap could completely wash away. Maya lived for this, for the moment when blank walls transformed into stories, when neighborhoods that had forgotten beauty suddenly remembered. A sleek black car rolled to a stop across the street. Maya barely noticed, too focused on adding depth to the phoenix's eye, making it seem as though the bird was watching the city with ancient wisdom. She heard a car door close but did not turn around. People often stopped to watch her work, some encouraging, some disapproving, most just curious. "That's remarkable," a voice said behind her, smooth and deep. Maya glanced over her shoulder. A man stood about 10 feet away, hands in the pockets of perfectly tailored charcoal pants. His white shirt was crisp despite the summer heat, sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing tanned forearms. He was tall, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair styled with casual precision, and a strong jawline that suggested he did not spend his days behind a desk, though everything about him screamed money. "Thanks," Maya said, turning back to her mural. She had learned not to engage too much with strangers while working. Some wanted to chat for hours, and she had limited time before the city's cleaning crews might spot her work and report it. "How long have you been doing this?" he asked, not taking the hint. "Painting, since I could hold a brush." "This," she gestured to the wall. "About 2 years." He moved closer, studying the mural with an intensity that made Maya pause. Most people glanced, complimented, and moved on. This man was actually looking, his eyes following the flow of color, the way the flames seemed to lift the phoenix upward. "You understand light," he said. "The way you have used the shadows, the building's natural contours. This is not just street art. This is fine art on an urban canvas." Maya felt a flush of pleasure at the genuine appreciation in his voice. "Street art is fine art," she said, but without defensiveness. "It just happens to belong to everyone instead of one collector." "I agree completely." He smiled, and it transformed his face from merely handsome to striking. "I'm Julian Hawthorne." He said it as though she should recognize the name. Maya did not. She shrugged apologetically. "Maya Reyes." "It is very nice to meet you, Maya Reyes." He pulled out his phone. "Would you mind if I took a photo of your work? It is a public wall," she said. "Take as many as you want." He photographed the mural from several angles, then surprised her by asking, "May I take one of you with it? I promise I am not being creepy. I am actually an art collector, and I would like to remember the artist behind this incredible piece." Maya hesitated, then nodded. She was proud of her work, even if it existed in legal gray areas. Julian took a quick photo of her standing beside the phoenix, then looked at it on his screen with satisfaction. "Perfect. Thank you." He paused, seeming to debate something. "I know this is sudden, but would you be interested in a commission?" "A commission?" Maya laughed. "I paint walls. Illegally, mostly. I'm not exactly the type you hire for your living room. What if I told you I have an entire mansion that could use your touch? Walls, both interior and exterior, that are currently blank and lifeless." His expression was serious. "I have been looking for an artist who could bring something raw and real to the space. Everything I have seen has been too polished, too commercial. But this," He gestured to the phoenix. This has soul. Maya stared at him. You're serious. Completely. I would pay you well, of course. We could discuss the details over coffee if you are interested. She should say no. She should finish her mural and disappear like she always did. But something in Julian's eyes, the genuine excitement there, made her curious. There's a diner 2 blocks down, she said. I need coffee anyway. They walked to Rosie's Diner, an institution in this neighborhood where the coffee was terrible but strong, and the pancakes made up for everything else. Maya felt acutely aware of her paint-stained clothes next to Julian's pristine appearance, but he did not seem to notice or care. He asked her questions about her technique, her inspiration, her vision, and actually listened to her answers. I grew up in this city, Maya told him, stirring sugar into her coffee. I watched it change, watched beautiful old buildings get torn down or left to rot. I wanted to give something back, to make people look up from their phones and see where they live, to remember that art does not have to be in a museum to matter. That is exactly why I want to hire you, Julian said. He leaned forward, his gray eyes intense. I inherited a house from my grandfather 2 years ago. It is this massive estate on the edge of the city, all stone and windows and empty walls. He built his fortune in real estate development, and he loved that house, but it always felt like a mausoleum to me. I want to transform it into something alive, something that would make him proud in a different way. Why me? You could hire anyone, famous artists, people with credentials. Because famous artists would give me what they think I want, you would give me what the walls need. He pulled out his phone again and showed her photos of his home. It was stunning, a sprawling modern mansion with clean lines and enormous windows, situated on what looked like several acres of manicured grounds. The truth is, I have more money than I know what to do with. My grandfather's company became mine when he passed, and it has grown exponentially. But none of that matters if I am living in a beautiful shell with no heart. Maya studied the photos, her mind already racing with possibilities. I would need creative freedom, she said. I do not do generic landscapes or portraits of dead relatives. If I do this, it has to be real. I would not want it any other way, Julian smiled. Name your price. Maya had no idea what to charge for something like this. She made ends meet with freelance graphic design work and the occasional legal mural commission from progressive businesses, but she had never tackled anything this scale. She named a figure that seemed astronomical to her. Julian did not blink. Double it, and we have a deal. A project this size will take months. I want you to be able to focus on it completely without worrying about money. She felt dizzy. The amount he was offering would change her life, pay off her student loans, maybe even let her rent a proper studio instead of working out of her cramped apartment. When would you want me to start? How about tomorrow? I can send a car for you, give you a full tour, and we can discuss your vision. He pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. This is my personal number. Text me your address. Maya took the card, running her thumb over the embossed letters. Hawthorne Development Corporation, Julian Hawthorne, CEO. She had just agreed to work for a millionaire CEO, and she was sitting here in paint-stained clothes drinking terrible coffee. The absurdity of it made her laugh. What is funny? Julian asked, smiling. This morning I was worried about getting arrested for vandalism, and now I am agreeing to paint a mansion for a CEO. It's just unexpected. The best things usually are, Julian said. His eyes held hers for a moment longer than necessary, and Maya felt something flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with the job offer. She texted him her address when she got home that evening, and he responded immediately with a simple, looking forward to tomorrow. The car will arrive at 9. Maya stood in her tiny apartment, looking at her collection of spray paint cans, her brushes, her sketches pinned to every available wall surface, and wondered what she had just gotten herself into. The next morning, a black sedan arrived exactly at 9. The driver was professional and courteous, opening the door for her and asking if she needed anything for the drive. Maya climbed in, feeling out of place in her clean but casual jeans and a simple black tank top. She had at least managed to scrub most of the paint off her hands. The drive took them out of the city center, past suburbs, into an area where properties were measured in acres rather than square feet. When they turned through iron gates and up a long driveway lined with oak trees, Maya's breath caught. The photos had not done the place justice. The mansion rose before them, all glass and stone and modern architecture that somehow felt warm rather than cold. Julian was waiting on the front steps, dressed more casually today in jeans and a gray Henley that hugged his broad shoulders. He smiled when he saw her, jogging down to open her door before the driver could. "Maya, welcome. What do you think?" "I think I am going to need a lot of paint," she said, staring up at the building. He laughed, a rich, warm sound. "Come on, let me show you around." The interior was as impressive as the exterior. High ceilings, open floor plans, natural light flooding through massive windows. But Julian was right. Despite the expensive furniture and tasteful decor, something was missing. The walls were blank canvases waiting for life. "My grandfather believed in minimalism," Julian explained as they walked through room after room. "He thought art cluttered a space. I used to argue with him about it when I was younger. He would say that the architecture was the art, and I would tell him that architecture was just the frame." "You were right," Maya said, running her hand along a pristine white wall in what Julian called the great room. "This is beautiful, but it does not tell any stories. It does not show who lives here." "Exactly." Julian stood beside her, looking at the same wall. "I want this place to reflect not just me, but the city I love, the history that built my family's fortune, the future I hope to create. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense." Maya pulled out her phone and started taking photos, making notes. "Can I come back and spend some time here alone? I need to feel the space, understand the light at different times of day." "You can come whenever you want. I will have a key made for you." He paused. "Or if you would be more comfortable, I have a guest house on the property. You could stay there while you work, save yourself the commute." Maya hesitated. It was a generous offer and it would make the work easier, but something about it felt too intimate, too much too soon. "Let me start with the key and see how it goes," she said. "Of course, whatever makes you comfortable." If Julian was disappointed, he did not show it. "Are you hungry? My chef prepared lunch." "You have a chef?" Maya could not keep the amusement out of her voice. "I have someone who comes in to prepare meals, yes. I am a terrible cook and I got tired of takeout." He led her to a spacious kitchen where plates of fresh salad, grilled chicken, and crusty bread were laid out. "Is this okay? I did not know what you liked." "This is perfect." They sat at the kitchen island, and Maya found herself relaxing despite the surreal circumstances. Julian asked her about her life, her family, her dreams beyond painting, and shared his own stories in return. His grandfather had started with nothing, worked his way up from construction worker to owning his own company. Julian had been groomed to take over from a young age, sent to the best schools, taught the business inside and out. But he had always felt the weight of expectations, the sense that his life had been planned before he had any say in it. "The company is successful," he said, pushing salad around his plate. "We have built half the commercial properties downtown, but sometimes I wonder what I would have chosen if I'd had the freedom to choose." "You could still choose," Maya pointed out. "You are the CEO, you could do anything." "It is not that simple. There are employees depending on the company, investors, my grandfather's legacy. He smiled, but it did not quite reach his eyes. Besides, I am good at what I do. That has to count for something. Being good at something and loving it are not the same thing. No, they are not. He looked at her with an expression she could not quite read. You are lucky, you know. You found your passion and you pursue it. Consequences be damned. I am also broke most of the time and one arrest away from a criminal record, Maya said dryly. The passion does not pay rent. Until now. Julian raised his water glass in a toast. To new beginnings. Maya clinked her glass against his, feeling the flutter in her chest again. This was just a job, she reminded herself. An amazing, life-changing job, but still just a job. The fact that her employer was intelligent, successful, and unfairly attractive was irrelevant. She spent the afternoon exploring the house, making sketches, taking notes. Julian left her alone to work, but was always nearby if she had questions. By the time the sun started to set, painting the walls in golden light, Maya had the beginnings of a vision. I want to tell a story, she told Julian as he drove her back to the city himself, having insisted his driver had the evening off. Starting from the entrance, showing the growth of the city, the people who built it. Your grandfather's story woven in, but also the stories of everyone else. The immigrants, the artists, the dreamers. By the time someone walks through your whole house, they should understand what this city means, what it cost, what it could be. Julian was quiet for a moment, his hand steady on the wheel. That is exactly what I wanted but did not know how to ask for. How did you understand that so quickly? Because it is the same story I try to tell with every mural, Maya said, just on a much bigger canvas. He pulled up outside her apartment building, which looked even more run-down next to his expensive car. Same time tomorrow. I will probably come earlier, if that is okay. I want to see the morning light. The key will be ready. I will text you the gate code. He hesitated, then added, Thank you, Maya. I know we just met, but I feel like this project is already in exactly the right hands. She felt herself blush and was grateful for the dimming light. Thank you for trusting me with it. That night, Maya could not sleep. She sketched until 3 in the morning, ideas flowing faster than she could capture them. She saw the entrance hall painted with the city's founding, rough and raw and real. The great room showing the boom of industry, the construction that shaped the skyline. The hallways telling smaller stories, intimate moments between the big historical sweeps. And somewhere, woven through it all, Julian's grandfather, a young man with calloused hands and big dreams. She texted Julian a few of her rough sketches, too excited to wait for morning. He responded immediately despite the late hour. These are incredible. I cannot sleep either. Too excited about this. They texted back and forth for an hour, discussing colors and themes and specific moments of city history. Maya learned that Julian knew the city's story as well as she did, that beneath the corporate exterior was someone who genuinely cared about the place he called home. Why did you become a CEO instead of a historian or a teacher? She texted. Because my grandfather needed me to be a CEO, and by the time he died, I had been doing it so long I did not know how to be anything else. It is not too late to figure it out. Maybe you are right. Good night, Maya. See you in the morning. Good night, Julian. Maya fell asleep with her phone in her hand and a smile on her face. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm. Maya arrived at the mansion each morning, sometimes finding Julian already there, other times having the place to herself. She started with the entrance hall, sketching directly on the walls with charcoal before beginning to paint. Julian would check on her progress, bringing her coffee and lunch, sometimes sitting quietly and watching her work. Do I make you nervous? he asked one afternoon after she had told him for the third time that he did not need to bring her food. "No," Maya said honestly, "but I do not want you to feel like you have to babysit me. I like watching you work, the way you get completely absorbed like nothing else exists." He handed her a sandwich. "And I enjoy your company, if that is okay." It was more than okay, and that was the problem. Maya looked forward to his visits, to their conversations that ranged from art to history to their favorite terrible movies. She found herself dressing a little more carefully in the mornings, wearing shirts that were not completely covered in paint splatters, making sure her hair was brushed. This was dangerous territory, catching feelings for a millionaire who was technically her boss. But Julian seemed equally interested in spending time with her. He started taking breaks when she did, and they would walk the grounds together, talking about everything and nothing. He showed her his grandfather's workshop, a small building at the edge of the property that had been left untouched since the old man's death. He would come out here when he needed to think, Julian said, running his hand along a dusty workbench. Even when he could afford to hire people for everything, he still liked to build things with his own hands. Maya looked around at the tools, the half-finished projects, the photos pinned to the walls. He sounds like he was an incredible person. He was. Hard sometimes. He had very specific ideas about how things should be done, but he loved deeply, worked hard, and always kept his word. Julian picked up an old plane, testing its weight. "I miss him every day." "You are honoring him," Maya said softly, "with this project, with what you are doing with the house. You are making sure his story is not forgotten." Julian looked at her, and the expression in his eyes made her breath catch. "I am glad you are here, Maya. This house has felt less lonely since you arrived." The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility. Then Julian's phone rang, shattering the spell. He answered with obvious reluctance, his voice shifting into business mode as he dealt with whatever crisis had arisen at the office. Maya went back to work, her heart pounding. She needed to be careful. This project would end eventually, and then what? She and Julian existed in completely different worlds. She needed to remember that, but it became harder to remember as the days turned into weeks and then months. The murals took shape, transforming the mansion's walls into a living history. Maya painted early morning light streaming through windows she had risen with the sun to study. She captured the way Julian laughed, unconsciously incorporating it into the joy on a painted worker's face. She told the story of the city, but increasingly, she was telling the story of falling in love. Because that was what was happening, whether she wanted to admit it or not. She was falling in love with Julian Hawthorne, with his kindness and his hidden dreams, and the way he looked at her art like she had hung the moon. She was falling in love with how he brought her favorite tea without asking, how he knew when she needed silence and when she needed conversation, how he had started rolling up his sleeves and helping her mix paints, getting his expensive clothes dirty without complaint. One evening in late autumn, Maya was working on a particularly detailed section in the library, standing on a ladder as she added tiny figures to a cityscape. Julian was reading in a chair nearby, his presence comfortable and familiar. Rain drummed against the windows, creating a cocoon of intimacy. "Maya," Julian said suddenly, "would you like to stay for dinner, not as a work thing, just because I would enjoy your company?" She looked down at him, her heart racing. This was a line they had not crossed yet. Their time together had always been in the context of work, even when it felt like more. "Is that a good idea?" "Probably not," he admitted. "But I am tired of pretending I am only interested in you as an artist." Maya climbed down from the ladder, her legs shaking slightly. "Julian, I am covered in paint and wearing jeans with holes in them." "You are beautiful," he said simply, You could be wearing a trash bag and you would still be beautiful. She laughed despite her nerves. That is a terrible line. I know, I am apparently very bad at this. He stood, crossing to her. The truth is, I have not been able to stop thinking about you since the day I saw you painting that phoenix. You fascinate me, Maya. Your talent, yes, but also your passion, your conviction, the way you see the world. I know I am your employer and this is complicated, but I needed you to know how I feel. Maya's heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. I think about you too, she admitted. Too much. I try not to because this is a job and you are a millionaire and I am just a street artist, but I cannot seem to help it. You are not just anything, Julian said fiercely. And I could not care less about money or social status or any of that. I care about you. The real you. He reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering. So will you stay for dinner? And maybe if you are comfortable with it, we could call it what it actually is. A date. Maya knew she should think about this more carefully, should consider all the ways this could go wrong. But when she looked into Julian's eyes and saw hope and fear and longing that mirrored her own feelings, caution did not seem to matter. Yes, she said. I would love to stay for dinner. As a date, Julian's smile could have lit the entire mansion. Perfect. Give me 20 minutes to throw something together. You said you were a terrible cook. I am. We will probably end up ordering pizza, but I wanted to impress you with the offer. He was already heading toward the kitchen, then turned back. Maya, I am really glad you said yes. Me too, she said, and meant it with her whole heart. They did end up ordering pizza, but Julian managed to put together a salad and find a bottle of wine. They ate in the kitchen, sitting close together at the island, the conversation flowing as easily as it always did, but with a new undercurrent of romance. Julian told her about his disastrous attempts at dating over the years, women who were more interested in his money than in him. Maya shared her own stories of failed relationships, artists who were too self-absorbed or men who did not understand her drive. I was starting to think maybe I was meant to be alone, Julian admitted. That I had focused so much on the company that I had forgotten how to connect with people on a real level. You connect just fine, Maya said. Maybe you were just looking in the wrong places. Or maybe I was waiting for the right person to literally paint her way into my life. He reached across the counter and took her hand, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. Is this okay? Yes, Maya breathed. The simple touch sent electricity through her entire body. They moved to the living room, sitting on the couch as the rain continued outside. Julian built a fire in the massive fireplace, and they talked for hours, the conversation eventually fading into comfortable silence as they sat closer and closer together. I should probably get home, Maya said eventually, though she made no move to stand. You could stay, Julian said softly. In the guest house, I mean. It is late and raining and I would worry about you driving. Maya knew he was offering an excuse, a way for her to stay without pressure. Okay, she said, if you are sure. I am very sure. He stood and offered his hand, pulling her up. They walked to the guest house through covered walkways, and Julian showed her around the space, pointing out the kitchen, the bathroom, the bedroom with its comfortable bed. Everything you need should be here, but text me if you need anything. He lingered in the doorway, clearly reluctant to leave. Julian, Maya said. He turned back and she stepped forward, closing the distance between them. Thank you, for dinner, for everything. Thank you for saying yes. He reached up and cupped her face gently, giving her plenty of time to pull away. When she did not, he leaned in and kissed her softly, his lips warm and sure against hers. Maya's eyes fluttered closed as she kissed him back, her hands coming up to rest on his chest. The kiss was gentle but charged with all the feelings they had been building for months, When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. "I have wanted to do that for weeks," Julian admitted. "Me too." Maya smiled up at him. "You should probably go before I make bad decisions." He laughed. "As much as I would love to explore those bad decisions, I want to do this right. Good night, Maya." "Good night." After he left, Maya lay in the guest house bed, staring at the ceiling and grinning like an idiot. She was dating Julian Hawthorne. The thought was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. Their relationship shifted after that night. They were still careful to maintain professionalism during the day when other people were around. When Julian's staff came to the house, or when Maya's assistant, a young art student named Carmen, who she had hired to help with the larger sections, was working. But in the quiet moments, they were simply Maya and Julian, two people discovering each other. Julian took her on proper dates, restaurants and museums, and a concert in the park. Maya brought him to her favorite spots in the city, the hidden murals, the best taco trucks, the rooftop where she went to sketch the skyline. He fit into her world more easily than she had expected, asking questions and genuinely listening to the answers. "You are not what I expected," Maya told him one evening as they sat on her building's roof, sharing a bottle of wine and watching the sunset. "What did you expect?" "I do not know. Someone more pretentious, maybe, more focused on status and appearances. But you are just a guy who happens to have money." "I had good role models," Julian said. "My grandfather never forgot where he came from. He taught me that wealth was a responsibility, not a trophy. That the measure of a man was not what he accumulated, but what he built and who he helped along the way." "He would be proud of you," Maya said. "Not just for running the company well, but for trying to create something meaningful with his legacy." Julian pulled her closer and she rested her head on his shoulder. "I am falling in love with you," he said quietly. "I know it is fast, and maybe I should not say it yet, but I do not want to hide it." Maya's breath caught. She had known, of course, had felt it in every gesture and look and touch. But hearing the words made it real in a way that terrified and exhilarated her. "I am falling in love with you too," she whispered. "Even though you are going to completely ruin me for all other men." He laughed and kissed the top of her head. "Good. That is the plan." The mural project was nearing completion. Maya had transformed virtually every major wall in the mansion, telling the story she had envisioned months ago. The entrance hall showed the city's founding, rough pioneers and ambitious immigrants. The great room captured the industrial boom, steel beams rising against painted skies. The hallways held intimate moments, a worker's calloused hands, a mother teaching her daughter to read, a young man looking up at a half-built skyscraper with determination in his eyes. That last figure was Julian's grandfather, painted from an old photograph Julian had provided. Maya had given him pride and strength and hope, everything Julian had described about the man. When Julian first saw it, completed on the wall of his study, he stood silent for a long moment. "Maya," he said finally, his voice rough with emotion, "this is perfect, this is exactly him." She came to stand beside him, studying her work critically. "I hope I did him justice." "You did more than that. You brought him back to life." Julian turned to her, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "Thank you. This whole project, everything you have created here, it is more than I ever dreamed." "There is still one wall left," Maya said. She had been thinking about it for weeks, the final piece of the puzzle. "The wall in your bedroom. I have an idea if you trust me." "I trust you completely." Maya worked on that final wall alone, refusing to let Julian see it until it was finished. She painted for 3 days straight, barely sleeping, fueled by coffee and inspiration. She painted the city at dawn, the way it looked from Julian's bedroom windows, but she added elements that did not exist in reality. In her mural, The buildings were connected by bridges of light, and people walked those bridges carrying pieces of color, spreading beauty across the urban landscape. It was a vision of what the city could be, what it was becoming through efforts of people like her and Julian, people who believed in beauty and community and connection. And in the foreground, barely visible unless you knew to look for them, she painted two figures standing on one of those light bridges, holding hands as they looked out over the city. The man was tall and strong, with kind eyes. The woman had paint on her hands and fire in her heart. It was her and Julian, not as they were but as they could be, building something beautiful together. When she finally let him see it, Julian stood in his bedroom doorway for a long time just looking. Then he walked to the wall, reaching out to touch it gently. "Is that us?" he asked. "Yes." Maya stood beside him, nervous despite herself. "Is it too much?" "It is perfect." He turned to her and the love in his eyes was unmistakable. "You are perfect. This entire house, every wall, every image, it is all perfect, but this is the heart of it. The hope." He kissed her then, deep and passionate, and Maya kissed him back with everything she had. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "I love you," Julian said. "Not falling, not halfway, completely, entirely, madly in love with you." "I love you too," Maya said, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. They made love that night beneath the mural of their shared future, and Maya had never felt more certain of anything. This was right. He was right. Whatever complications existed between their different worlds, none of it mattered compared to what they felt for each other. The official unveiling of the murals came a month later. Julian had insisted on hosting an event, inviting art critics, journalists, and members of the community. Maya had been reluctant at first, uncomfortable with the attention, but Julian convinced her that the work deserved to be seen and celebrated. The night of the event, Maya wore a dress for the first time since Julian had met her, a simple but elegant black number that she had found at a vintage shop. Julian wore a suit that probably cost more than her car, but the way he looked at her when she walked down the guest house stairs made her feel like the most beautiful woman in the world. "You are stunning," he said, offering his arm. "You are not so bad yourself." She took his arm, letting him lead her toward the main house, which was lit up and filled with people. The response to the murals was overwhelming. Critics praised the technical skill and emotional depth. Journalists asked dozens of questions about her process and inspiration. Community members thanked her for telling their stories, for seeing them and honoring their contributions to the city. But the moment that meant the most came when an elderly woman approached Maya with tears in her eyes. "That man in the study," she said, with the calloused hands looking at the building, "that is Samuel Hawthorne." "Yes," Maya said. "Did you know him?" "He was my father." The woman smiled through her tears. "I am Julian's Aunt Catherine. I could not make it to the house before tonight, but Julian told me about the murals. I had to see them for myself." Maya felt Julian tense beside her. He had mentioned his aunt only once, saying they had a complicated relationship after his grandfather's death, disagreements about the company and family money. "Aunt Catherine," Julian said carefully, "I am glad you came." "I almost did not," Catherine admitted. "I was angry with you with how you were changing Father's house. But this," she gestured to the walls around them, "this is not change. This is remembrance. This is love." She turned to Maya. "You have a remarkable gift, my dear. You did not just paint my father, you captured his spirit." "That is what Julian told me about him," Maya said. "All the credit goes to him for keeping those stories alive." "Perhaps," Catherine said, "but you were the one who knew how to tell them." She turned back to Julian. "I am sorry for being difficult. Father would have loved this. He would have loved her." She kissed Julian's cheek and squeezed Maya's hand before moving on to examine more of the murals. Julian let out a breath he had been holding. I did not think she would come. I am glad she did. Maya leaned into him. This project has brought together more than just paint and walls. It has brought together family and community and memory. It has brought me you, Julian said softly. That alone would have been worth everything. The party went late into the night. By the time the last guest left, Maya was exhausted but happy. She and Julian sat on the front steps of the mansion, her shoes discarded beside her, his jacket wrapped around her shoulders against the cool night air. What happens now? Maya asked. The project was done. The house was complete. The reason that brought them together no longer existed. Now, Julian said, we figure out what comes next, together if you want. What does that look like? He was quiet for a moment, thinking. I have been considering some changes to the company. My grandfather built affordable housing before it was profitable, before it was trendy. I want to return to that vision, to use our resources to create beautiful, accessible spaces for everyone. Housing that does not just shelter people but inspires them. You want to put art in affordable housing. Maya guessed. I want to hire you to put art in affordable housing, Julian corrected. Not just you. I want to create a program that commissions local artists for every project, that makes sure these buildings have the soul that this house now has. Maya stared at him. That would be incredible. But it would cost a fortune. I have a fortune. I should use it for something that matters. He turned to face her fully. Move in with me, not into the guest house here, into the main house. Help me figure out what this place should be, how it can serve the community. Turn it into something living instead of a monument. Julian, that is a huge step. I know. And if you are not ready, I understand. But I love you, Maya. I want to build a life with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. I want to support your art and your dreams, and figure out how my resources can amplify your vision instead of being used for the same corporate developments we have been doing for years. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. You would really change your whole business model. The company will be fine. Better than fine, because we will be doing work that actually matters. But yes, I would change everything for you. You have shown me what I was missing, what my grandfather's legacy could truly become. I love you, Maya said. And yes, I will move in with you. Yes, I want to build this future together. Yes to all of it. Julian kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. Above them, the mansion stood tall, its walls now alive with color and story, a testament to what could be created when art and resources and love came together. Maya moved into the mansion the following month. It was strange at first, living in such a huge space, having staff who wanted to cook and clean for her. But Julian made sure she had her own studio set up in one of the unused rooms, a space with perfect north light and enough room for all her supplies. He encouraged her to keep doing her street murals, even coming with her sometimes, acting as lookout while she painted. The affordable housing project began that winter. Julian's company purchased 3 rundown apartment buildings in different neighborhoods, buildings that would have been demolished or flipped into expensive condos. Instead, they gutted and renovated them, maintaining affordable rent prices while creating beautiful, dignified spaces for working families. Maya coordinated the art program, reaching out to local artists and pairing them with specific buildings. She wanted each building to reflect its neighborhood, to honor the people who lived there. She spent hours in community meetings, listening to stories, understanding what residents wanted to see on their walls. For the first building, in the neighborhood where she had painted the Phoenix, Maya created the centerpiece mural herself. She painted children playing in a park that did not exist yet, but that Julian's company had committed to building. She painted families sitting together on building stoops, talking and laughing. She painted hope. The ribbon cutting for the first renovated building was on a warm spring day, nearly a year after Maya and Julian had first met. The mayor was there, along with journalists and community leaders. But the people who mattered most were the families moving in. The single mother who cried when she saw her affordable two-bedroom apartment, the elderly couple who had been priced out of the neighborhood and could finally return. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, tugged on Maya's hand. "Did you paint the kids on the wall?" "I did," Maya said, crouching down to her level. "They look happy, like they are having fun." "They are. Do you like to have fun?" The girl nodded vigorously. "My mama says we are going to live here now in the building with the pretty pictures." "I have never lived somewhere pretty before." Maya felt her throat tighten. "Well, now you do, and I hope you are very happy here." "I will be," the girl said confidently, then ran off to join her mother. Julian appeared beside Maya, slipping his arm around her waist. "You okay?" "Better than okay." She leaned into him. "We did something good here. You did something good. I just provided the money. You provided the vision too. Your grandfather would be proud." "I hope so." Julian kissed her temple. "I have something for you, by the way." "What?" He pulled a small box from his pocket and Maya's heart started to race. But when he opened it, instead of a ring, there was a key. "What is this?" she asked, confused. "A key to the old factory building on 9th Street. The one you wanted to paint 3 years ago, but the city blocked you." Maya gasped. "You bought it." "I bought it. It is yours to do with whatever you want. Turn it into a studio, a gallery, a community arts center. Whatever your vision is, I will fund it." She threw her arms around his neck, laughing and crying at the same time. "How are you even real?" "I ask myself the same thing about you every day." He held her close, and she could feel his smile against her hair. The factory project became Maya's passion for the next year. She decided to turn it into a combination community arts center and affordable studio space for artists. The ground floor would have classrooms for free art programs for neighborhood kids. The upper floors would be divided into studio apartments and workspaces that artists could rent for a fraction of market rate. Julian's company did the renovation work at cost, and Maya oversaw every detail. She wanted the space to feel inspiring but not intimidating, professional but accessible. She recruited artist friends to teach classes, set up a scholarship program for supplies, and organized community paint days where neighbors could come help create murals on the exterior walls. The center opened 2 years after Maya and Julian met. By then, they had become fixtures in the city's art scene and philanthropic community. Maya had been commissioned for murals across the city, all legal now, and her work was featured in galleries. But she always made time for the community projects, for the kids who reminded her of herself, looking for beauty in unexpected places. On the night before the Arts Center's opening, Maya and Julian walked through the empty building together, admiring how everything had come together. The walls exploded with color, each one telling a different story. The studios were ready for their first artists to move in. The classrooms had fresh supplies waiting. "I cannot believe we pulled this off," Maya said, her voice echoing in the large space. "You pulled this off." "I just wrote some checks. You did a lot more than that." She turned to face him. "You believed in this vision when it was just a crazy dream. You made it possible." "That is what you do when you love someone," Julian said. "You make their dreams possible." He got down on one knee and Maya's breath caught in her throat. "Maya Reyes, you walked into my life 2 years ago and changed everything. You showed me what it meant to live with purpose, to create beauty, to give back to the community that raised us. You turned my empty house into a home and my aimless fortune into a tool for good. You are my best friend, my partner, my inspiration, and the love of my life." He pulled out a ring, a simple but elegant band with a single perfect diamond. "Will you marry me?" Maya was crying, happy tears streaming down her face. "Yes," she said. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Julian slipped the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss that made her forget everything else. They held each other in the center of the art space they had built together, surrounded by the evidence of what they could create as a team. "I love you," Maya whispered. "I love you too. Always." They were married 6 months later in the garden of Julian's mansion, which they now both thought of as home. The walls of the house provided the backdrop, Maya's murals telling their story to everyone gathered. It was a small ceremony, just close friends and family, exactly what they both wanted. Catherine was there, crying happy tears and telling anyone who would listen about how her father would have loved Maya. Carmen, Maya's assistant who had become a close friend, served as maid of honor. Julian's best man was his childhood friend Marco, who gave a speech about how he had never seen Julian as happy as he had been since meeting Maya. The art center's first group of students performed a dance during the reception, and several artists from the studios displayed their work. It was a celebration that blended their two worlds seamlessly. Art and business, community and family, old money and new vision. For their honeymoon, they did not go to some expensive resort. Instead, they took a road trip across the country, stopping at different cities to see street art and murals, to meet other artists, and to get inspired for future projects. Julian photographed everything, taking hundreds of pictures of Maya in front of her favorite pieces, and Maya filled 3 sketchbooks with ideas. When they returned home, they dove into their next project. Julian had convinced his company's board to commit to building an entire neighborhood of affordable housing, a development that would include not just apartments, but also parks, community centers, and commercial spaces for local businesses. Maya would oversee the public art program, making sure every building, every park, every gathering space reflected the community's character. It was ambitious, probably too ambitious, but they were determined to make it work. They spent months in community meetings, listening to what residents wanted, what they needed, what they dreamed about. Maya sketched constantly, capturing faces and stories, turning them into art that would eventually cover walls and bridges and gathering spaces. 3 years after they met, the first phase of the neighborhood was completed. The ribbon-cutting ceremony drew a huge crowd, and Maya was asked to speak. She stood at the podium, Julian beside her, and looked out at the faces in the crowd, many of them people she had gotten to know over the past year. "I grew up believing that art was something that happened in galleries and museums, spaces that felt closed off to people like me," she said. "But the truth is, art belongs everywhere, especially in the places where people live their everyday lives. This neighborhood is proof that affordable housing does not have to mean ugly housing, that beauty is not a luxury but a necessity. Every wall here tells a story, honors the people who live here, celebrates the community they are building together." She paused, her eyes finding Julian's. None of this would have been possible without someone who believed that resources should be used to create beauty and opportunity for everyone. Someone who took his grandfather's legacy and transformed it into something even greater. "My husband, Julian Hawthorne, is the real artist here. He has painted a vision of what our city can be, and all of us are just filling in the colors." The applause was thunderous. Julian stepped forward and took her hand, squeezing gently. "My wife is too generous," he said into the microphone. "This is her vision, her heart, her talent on every wall and in every thoughtful design choice. But she is right that this is about community, about what we can build when we decide that everyone deserves to live somewhere beautiful. This is just the beginning. There are 3 more phases planned, and we hope other developers will follow our lead. We want to prove that you can do good work, create beautiful spaces, honor communities, and still run a successful business. After the ceremony, as they walked through the new neighborhood together, residents kept stopping them to say thank you, to show them their apartments, to introduce them to their children. A teenage girl showed Maya a sketchbook full of drawings, inspired by the murals. An older man told Julian that this development meant he did not have to move away from the neighborhood where he had lived for 40 years. This is what it is all about, Maya said later that evening as they sat in their favorite spot in the mansion's garden, watching the sunset. Not the accolades or the press coverage, but those individual moments. That girl who is drawing because she sees art around her. That man who gets to stay in his community. We make a good team, Julian said, pulling her close. The best team. She kissed him softly. What should we tackle next? Funny you should ask. Julian grinned. I was thinking we could expand the program to other cities, create a blueprint that other communities could follow. And there is this abandoned waterfront that would be perfect for a mixed-use development with live workspaces for artists. Maya laughed. You never run out of ideas, do you? Not when I have you to bring them to life. 4 years after they met, Maya gave birth to their daughter, Alina. They had converted one of the mansion's rooms into a nursery, and Maya painted it herself, creating a dreamy landscape of clouds and birds and possibilities. Julian insisted on taking paternity leave, and they spent those first months in a sleep-deprived haze of love and wonder. Alina grew up surrounded by art and community, by parents who modeled what it meant to use privilege and platform to create positive change. By the time she was 3, she was already showing artistic talent, painting enthusiastic if abstract pictures that Julian hung in his office like they were Picasso's. Maya continued her work, though she scaled back to spend more time with Alina. She still painted murals, still oversaw the community art programs, but she was more selective about projects. Julian had restructured his role at the company, promoting someone he trusted to CEO while he became chairman of the board, giving him more flexibility and time for family. They had found balance, something neither of them had thought possible in those early days when their worlds seemed so different. But they had learned that love was not about 2 people being the same. It was about complementing each other, supporting each other's dreams, and building something together that was greater than what either could create alone. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Julian surprised Maya by taking her back to the wall where they had first met, the one where she had painted the phoenix. The neighborhood had been revitalized since then, partly due to their affordable housing projects nearby, and the wall was now protected, designated as a historic landmark by the city. I think about this day all the time, Julian said, standing in front of the mural. How I almost drove past, how I almost did not stop. My whole life would be different if I had missed you. But you did not miss me, Maya said, taking his hand. You stopped, you looked, you saw. I saw the art first, Julian admitted, but then I saw you and I knew my life was about to change. I did not know how, but I knew. I thought you were just some rich guy who wanted to show off his art knowledge, Maya teased. I was absolutely trying to show off. I wanted you to be impressed. He pulled her close. And then, I fell so completely in love with you that I forgot to care whether you were impressed or not. I just wanted to know you, to understand you, to be part of your world. You did not just become part of my world, Maya said. You expanded it. You showed me that my art could reach further, affect more people, create real change. And you let me do the same for you, Let me show you that there was more to life than board meetings and profit margins." Julian kissed her, long and deep, right there on the street where they had met. A few passers-by clapped and whistled, and they broke apart laughing. "Come on," Maya said. "Let's go home. Elena will want to hear a bedtime story, and I promised Carmen I would review her grant proposal for the youth program expansion. How did I get so lucky?" Julian asked as they walked to the car, hands intertwined. "We both got lucky," Maya corrected. "But more than that, we worked for this. We chose each other every day. We chose to bridge our different worlds instead of letting them keep us apart. That is not luck. That is love." That night, after Elena was asleep and the grant proposal was reviewed, Maya and Julian stood in front of the bedroom mural, the one showing the city connected by bridges of light. The painting had become their talisman, a reminder of what they were building together. "You ever regret it?" Julian asked quietly. "Giving up the freedom of illegal street art, becoming part of the establishment, even if we are trying to change it from within?" "Never," Maya said firmly. "I still paint whatever I want. I just do it legally now with resources that let me do it bigger and better. And more importantly, I am teaching other artists that they do not have to choose between staying true to their vision and making a living. They can do both. We are proving that every day." "We are," Julian agreed. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, and they stood together, looking at their painted future. "I love you, Maya Hawthorne. I love you too." In the years that followed, they continued to build their shared vision. The affordable housing program expanded to 5 other cities. The art center grew to include a second location. Maya's work was featured in museums, but she always made sure to spend equal time on community projects. Julian's company became known as a leader in ethical development, proving that businesses could prioritize people and beauty alongside profit. Elena grew into a thoughtful, creative child who spent her afternoons at the art center, learning from the same teachers her mother had trained. She painted her own murals on the designated wall in their backyard, telling stories in color the same way her mother did. When Elena was 7, they welcomed a son, Diego. He was more like Julian, contemplative and analytical, but he loved watching his mother paint and his father plan developments. The mansion that had once felt like a cold monument was now alive with the sounds of children laughing, paint splattering, blueprints being sketched, and love being lived every single day. Maya sometimes thought back to that morning when she had painted a phoenix on a wall, not knowing that her whole life was about to change. She thought about how close she had come to missing it all, if Julian had driven past without stopping, if she had said no to the commission, if she had let fear of their different worlds keep her from taking a chance. But she had not let fear win. Neither of them had. They had chosen courage, chosen love, chosen to believe that 2 people from different backgrounds could create something beautiful together. And they had been right. On their 10th anniversary, Julian had the city officially name the street where they met Phoenix Way in honor of Maya's mural and what it represented. At the dedication ceremony, with their children beside them and the community that they had helped build surrounding them, Maya looked at her husband and saw the same love and wonder in his eyes that had been there from the beginning. "What are you thinking?" Julian asked, taking her hand. "I am thinking about how grateful I am that you stopped that day, that you saw my art and decided to take a chance on some unknown street artist. I am thinking about how grateful I am that you said yes, that you let me into your world, that you showed me what my life could be." He kissed her hand. "Best decision I ever made." "Best decision we both made," Maya corrected. They stood together in front of the Phoenix mural, which had been restored and protected, a permanent part of the city's landscape now. Their children ran ahead, playing with other kids from the neighborhood. Friends and family gathered around, celebrating not just an anniversary but a partnership that had transformed a community. Maya had started that morning 5 years ago, wanting to bring beauty to her city, to tell stories on walls that everyone could see. She had succeeded beyond her wildest dreams, but not because of the fame or the commissions or the recognition. She had succeeded because she had found someone who believed in the same vision, who had the resources to amplify it, and who loved her enough to make her dreams his own. And Julian had wanted to honor his grandfather's legacy, to transform an empty mansion into something meaningful. He had done that too, but the real transformation had been in himself, in learning that the best legacy was not the one you inherited but the one you created, one brushstroke, one building, one act of love at a time. Together, they had painted a life more beautiful than any mural, built a partnership stronger than any mansion walls, and created a love story that would inspire their children and their community for generations to come. They had proven that when art met resources, when passion met purpose, when two people chose each other and chose to make their world better, anything was possible. As the sun set over Phoenix Way, casting golden light over the mural that had started it all, Maya leaned into Julian's embrace and smiled. This was her masterpiece, not the paintings on walls but the life they had built together, full of color and love and endless possibility. And it was exactly what she had always dreamed of creating, even before she knew such a dream existed. The phoenix on the wall seemed to glow in the fading light, wings spread wide, rising from the flames toward an endless sky. It was a fitting symbol for their love, for what they had built together. They had taken their separate lives, their different worlds, and created something entirely new, something beautiful, something eternal. And they would continue creating it together, one day, one choice, one act of love at a time, for all the years to come.